This is the first lecture on arteries. So in discussing arteries then, first we're going to discuss your pulmonary circulation. So as you recall, there is the pulmonary trunk. Now this, as you recall, comes out of the heart then. So it curves over the superior border of the heart, and it gives rise to the left and right pulmonary arteries. And these enter the lungs before branching further. Then, once the blood has gotten to the lungs and has gone through a series of ever smaller arteries and arterioles, then capillaries go to the alveoli in the lungs. You remember those. And gas exchange takes place. And then after gas exchange has taken place, the oxygenated blood then enters venules which eventually unite to form a pair of large pulmonary veins. And these enter the left atrium. Of the heart. So here, just so you remember, here where we are talking about all of this happening This then is happening in the lungs, this gas exchange here, and then, as I said, in the lungs, then you wind up having the newly oxygenated blood entering venules and so on, and then eventually you form the pulmonary veins that lead to the heart. So that then is your quick introduction to pulmonary circulation. I should explain that in these lectures, I am just going to be giving you a broad outline of the circulatory system. There are lots and lots and lots of arteries and veins, so I am merely giving you the system as a whole and what it looks like. There may be times when you are in healthcare where you need to know more specifics about blood vessels in the arm or the head or whatever, but that's not what we're doing here. Okay, so now we are moving on to systemic. Circulation. So, systemic circulation, of course, begins with the aorta. And the aorta is such an important blood vessel that we actually break it up into different parts. The vessel is continuous, but we name different sections of it different things just for our own convenience, basically. So there is the ascending aorta, which begins at the aortic semilunar valve, that is to say, just coming out of the heart. Now, let me explain what's going on here. You remember the aorta, I hope. So we have the heart, right? So I'm going to draw this entirely disproportionately, but here we have the heart, and here we have the aorta coming out of the heart. Here we go, here's the aorta coming out. Here it is. And it does form this curve. Remember, there's a valve there. So this whole thing from here, all of this, and all of that, then all of this, then all of this is the aorta. But we name it different things in different places. So we have the ascending aorta coming out of the aortic semilunar valve there. It's called the ascending aorta because the blood is going uphill. The blood is going against gravity here. So the two coronary arteries then originate near the base of the ascending aorta. So from roughly here to here, this area in here then, that is the ascending aorta. The blood is going up, basically. And what you have just been told is that the blood coming out of the ventricle here goes through that one-way semilunar valve, and it goes up like this. But very shortly after the blood exits that valve there, goes through that valve, you wind up having the two coronary arteries branching off. So that then is on the ascending portion of the aorta. Okay, so that's the ascending portion of the aorta. Then we have the aortic arch. And this curves around the heart and then descends downward and caudally to become then the descending aorta. Okay, so what did I just say? To begin with, we have the aortic arch. That is the part of the aorta that actually forms that arch. So you can see it here. We have this nice arch, like an arch over a doorway, from about here to about here. So that then is the aortic arch right there. So the aortic arch, take a look using the red marker here. So the aortic arch, now it goes up, it goes around the heart, it hugs the heart pretty much, but I didn't do it that way here just so you could see it. And then it goes down. It descends downward. Now remember your directional terms. The blood goes downward, the aorta goes downward and caudally. Caudally, as you recall, means towards the tail. So what this is saying is that the blood actually heads back, or the aorta, I should say, heads downward, but also heads in the direction of your tail. That is to say, back here, you know where it is, the sacrum and the coccyx, basically your tail. So you then have, as I said, the aortic arch curve around the border of the heart and then go down and be heading towards the tail. And once it gets past the arch stage and is going behind, and I'm not going to be able to draw that, but basically, here we go. Here we have a tube going down. And this is going to go down for a very, very long way. So this long blood vessel. Now, from here to as far down as it goes, then, this is the descending aorta. So the descending aorta basically is from where the arch stops and the aorta goes down and down and down, which it does for a very long way. You continue to have the descending aorta basically until you get to the pelvis, to where you have the divisions for the legs, at which point it's no longer the aorta. Okay, so carrying on with what we see here, you've learned about the ascending aorta. Now I'm going to give you a few details about circulation coming out of the aortic arch. So this gives rise to 3 arteries. Then the first is the left subclavian, and this goes toward your left arm. Then we have the left common carotid artery, and this goes to the left side of your head and neck. The next bit is a little bit different. The third artery coming off of the aortic arch then is called the brachiocephalic artery, and this then ascends only a short distance and then branches to become first the right subclavian, which goes toward the right arm, and then secondly, the right common carotid, see the same as above but on the right then, and this then goes to the right side of the head and neck. So basically what this is telling you here is that there is not perfect symmetry here. What you're going to get instead is at the aortic arch itself, So here we have the aortic arch. And remember, you're looking at this person. So this is the right side here. Here's the left side. I think I'm going to move it down a little bit just to make things easier to draw. So anyway, here we have the aortic arch. So we then have the left subclavian. We then have, move this up a little bit further. We then have the left common carotid. And then we have the brachiocephalic, which then divides up into the mirror image arteries on the other side. So now, nearer to the neck, here, we have the right common carotid, and here we have the right subclavian. So you eventually wind up with that arterial blood then going where it's supposed to go, but you have 3 arteries on the arch, which eventually become the 4 arteries that are supplying your upper body. And that is it for this lecture.